In this video, we are going to give an introduction to each individual aspect or each individual stage of 3D computer graphics in Blender and how to work on each of them in Blender. Okay, now let's just talk about all the different aspects of 3D computer graphics workflow, or all the different stages in 3D production pipeline that are solely related to 3D computer graphics. Well, there are 8 different stages. These are 3D modeling, 3D texturing, 3D rigging, 3D animation, 3D lighting, 3D shading, 3D rendering, and simulation. This list includes all the different stages individually. We can merge them into each other, making 4 major stages that are solely related to 3D computer graphics. These can be 3D modeling, 3D animation, 3D rendering, and simulation. Well, the 3D texturing can be merged with 3D modeling, 3D rigging can be merged with 3D animation, 3D lighting, 3D shading can be merged with 3D rendering, and simulation still stays the same. A complete and full stage. Let's just start talking about the first stage, that is 3D modeling. Well, anything you want to do in 3D computer graphics, or any project you want to complete in 3D computer graphics, no matter it is animation, VFX, or just product visualization, or just 3D rendering, you always need a 3D model of some sort. 3D modeling is the most important first and really important stage of 3D computer graphics. Without 3D modeling, you cannot, or without having any sort of 3D model, any sort of a model, you cannot complete any project whatsoever. In order to complete a project, you need to have some sort of a model or a physical thing that exists in this digital world or 3D world. What is modeling? Well, modeling is creating a digital object or a physical digital object that replicates real life model or object into a digital space. And how to do 3D modeling? Well, there are 3 different types of modeling. The first one is the poly modeling, which is the most important and commonly used 3D modeling type. The second one is called NURB surfaces modeling, and the third one is called subdivision surfaces modeling. Well, throughout this series, we will be mostly talking about the poly modeling because it is the most commonly used and the most famous modeling type, because the editing and creation of any model by this type is really easy, and there are some other advantages of this modeling. There will be times when I will talk about the other types and their use, but most likely we will stick to this type of modeling. But in this video, we will just talk about poly modeling. Now let's just talk about what is poly modeling and how to work on poly modeling in Blender. Well, we're gonna start by creating a polygon object. In order to add anything in our scene in Blender, we can just press and hold Shift and press A. It will open up the whole list of adding function in Blender. It can be add a mesh, curves, NURB surfaces, metaball, text, and all other type of add function available in Blender. In this case, we will, since we are talking about poly modeling, we will add a polygonal object. Let's just add a cube. Now, how 3D models from Polygon are created? Well, any model, whether it is a truck, a car, a character, any building, or any sort of 3D polygon model you see in the screen, is created by several different small polygons arranged in a way that it represents that model's surface. Like a character or a building, If you want to create a character or a building, you will create it by dividing it or approximating its surface with several different polygons arranged in a certain way that it approximates its surface or it approximates its structure. Well, how to do that? In order to do that, we just take a basic 3D object. As we have seen in this list, there are several different objects. We create any of this basic shape and then edit it to turn into whatever type of model we want. We divide it in several different polygons and edit it to create a different model. Let me show you how to do that. In order to edit any polygonal model, all we have to do is select that object and then press tab to go into its edit mode. From there on, we can use several tools to run several operations onto this model to modify it into a different shape. All the different tools to editing or modifying are listed in here in the tool shelf in this region. Right under the mesh tool panel, we will see several different tools for several different functions or several different operations that we can run onto this model. There is subdivision, inset face, extrude region, extrude individual, duplicate, loop, cut and slide, knife, and several different tools to run different operations on this model. These can also access by down here in the header region of this editor. You will see mesh. You click this and you will see different tools for different functions, for different elements of this object, whether it is a face, an edge, or a vertex. You will see all the different tools for these different elements listed under here. There are also some other tools that will be listed in here, like extrude, delete or duplicate, clean up, and normal. But the most common way or method to run this operation or get to these tools will be on the keyboard. If you press Ctrl E, Ctrl F, and Ctrl V, it will open all the tools that are needed to run an operation on this mesh. We have also on our fingertips some really basic and some really useful tool like extrude tool or the edge loop tool or the inset tool. Let's just say we inset this face really quick. Well, we can change the edit type by pressing Ctrl Tab, and we can go into this different edit type of the mesh. In this case, we want to select the face. Let's just select a face and press E to run an extrude function on this mesh. You saw that we can run some really basic function on an object by just pressing a hotkey from our keyboard. This way we have some really cool and important function on our fingertips. We can also run another function that is an edge loop function by pressing Ctrl R. And we can slide this edge loop. Running the same function again and scrolling the middle mouse button up or down, we can add or subtract several different edge loops. And by pressing the left mouse button, we are selecting those number of edge loops, and then we can slide by dragging our mouse left and right. We can deselect this by right mouse button or escape key. It will put it in exact in center. Or If we by accidentally place the edge loop in a wrong edge ring, we can deselect it by right mouse button. As we can see, we have some really basic or really important tools for editing a mesh object on our fingertips. Let's just undo it a couple of times to go back to this mode and deselect all by pressing A. Now keep in mind, we can press A to select everything and press A again to deselect everything. If we have selected any component of a mesh, we can press A to deselect everything. Well, the selection and deselection works in all the mode in the Blender. We can select and deselect anything by pressing A in any editor in Blender. Now let's just run an operation. As we can see, we have a lot of operation on our fingertips in Blender, which are given to us by assigning those functions to hotkeys. Let's just really quickly select this face and pressing I to inset the mesh, and then pressing E to extrude it out, and then pressing Ctrl R to put an edge loop around this edge ring, and then scrolling up to add one more loop, and then clicking left mouse button and then clicking right mouse button to add it to the center. As you can see, we have changed the entire shape of the model, as we were given just a box previously. We had this box and we have changed the entire box into a different sort of a shape. This is how modeling is done. Let's just edit this model furthermore to create a bit more different shape from this. Let me create one more loop here by pressing Ctrl R, and one more loop here by pressing Ctrl R and then left clicking it. Now what I need to do is bring this surface, this very surface down to align exactly to the bottom of this, to create a continuous flat surface. In order to do that, I just have created two more edge loop, and now one more right here. All I need to do is delete this half of the edge loop by selecting them and then pressing the X key. It will bring different options for deleting different component of the mesh. We will select dissolve edge loop from here. This will dissolve the edge loop. We have to do same to these edge loops. In order to select a range of an edge loop, not the entire edge loop, just a range of an edge loop, all we can do is select the first edge we want, and for selecting the last edge of that range, press and hold Control key and then right click to select the last edge of that range, and it will select the desired range of the edge loop. Not the entire edge loop, just the desired range of edge loop. To do same to this, we need to press and hold Shift and then right click to select it again, and then press and hold Control and Shift to select this edge loop range as well. And then we will delete it by pressing X and dissolve the edge loop. Now what we're going to do is align these edges. Or first, what I should have done is select these edges as well, and have deleted them too. So press X key on your keyboard and select dissolve edges again. So now we are left with these incomplete edge loops, and we can select the whole edge loop by pressing and holding Shift and Alt and then right click to select this edge. It will select the entire edge loop. Now bring them up in Z-axis and align them with this vertex. In order to do that, we need to go down in the header region and select this snap during transformation and select from the type the vertex. Now all we have to do is select this Z-axis manipulator from here to translate it to in the Z-axis, and then wait a sec. Well, we have some problem, I guess. What the heck? I think I have selected something else as well. Just deselect them and then select them again. I guess I don't know what the problem is. By the way, I have done that by pressing Z to go into the wireframe mode and then pressing Z back to come back into the solid mode. So we have deselected it by pressing A and select them again the same way by pressing and holding Shift and Alt and then right clicking to select the edge of the edge loop we want to select. Now selecting the Z-axis of this manipulator by the left mouse button and clicking and dragging or bringing it to this vertex, it will snap all the edge loop to align to this vertex. What it will do, it will align all this edge loop to this vertex right here. Now we need to do that to the other edge loops. Before selecting that other edge loop, all we have to do is press A to deselect all the edge loop and then press and hold Shift and Alt and then use right mouse button to select the edge of the edge loop that we want to select. When we are done with it, we can align this edge loop to this vertex right here in the y-axis. So we have to select this green manipulator from this tool, transform tool, and then bring it to this vertex. It will align the whole edge loop to this vertex. We can do same to this. First deselect it by A and then select this edge loop and then align it to this vertex. Now what we want to do is select first select this knife tool from here and create few edges joining these two vertices and then doing same to this one as well. Selecting knife from here and we are doing it by the left mouse button. Now what we can do is go into the face mode by activating it from the header region and then select these few faces and then deleting them. Now what this gives us is this opening that we can merge them into each other. Let me just show you what I mean. Now what I can do is go into the vertex mode. We can go in from here, or we can simply press and hold Control and then press Tab to go into the vertex mode from here. Then selecting these two vertices and then press Alt and M to bring options for merging these two vertices. what we can do with this is we can merge these two vertices. Now let's just select merge with the last selected vertex. What it does, it will merge any number of selected vertices to the last selected vertex. We can do same to this one and this one and this one. And now let's just select all these vertices and align all these vertices to any one of these vertex. To do that, we can just simply press G to grab and Z to align them in Z axis, and then move our cursor to one of the vertex, and then simply click the left mouse button. As you can see, we really created a different shape out of it. To finish off, let's just go into the edge mode and then press select these two edges by the right mouse button, and then press X to dissolve these edges. As we can see, we have created a really different shape out of a simple box. Let's just create another shape before we move on to the next stage. Deselect all of them by pressing A. Now we are going to create another shape from this box. Select it, and then go into the edit mode. Now we're going to create a shape of a chair out of this. Select all by pressing A, and then press S to scale it down, and press Z for the Z axis, and scale it down in the Z axis. Well, I've noticed that the snap during transformation is still active, so let's just deactivate it, and then press S again and press Z to scale in the Z axis and scale it down quite a bit. And scale it down in all axes somewhat too. Let's just create two edge loops right here. Let's just say horizontally, and scale them out in x-axis, and then come here and create two edge loops here, let's say vertically. Select these two edge loops and then click the right mouse button to deselect the location or the position of these edge loops so they are just placed right in the center, and then press S to scale them out in the y-axis and scale them out. Now come down here and go into the face mode and select these four faces on the all four corners, and press E to extrude them. And as you can see, automatically it gives you the Z axis to extrude them out in that axis. So let's extrude them out all in the Z axis, which it automatically gives us. Here, press 3 and press 5 to go into the right orthographic view and bring them all the way down. Now press 5 back again and select these three faces, and then press E again to extrude them out. As previously, it automatically gives you the Z axis. Now you can see we have made a chair out of the box. Changing the shape of that simple polygonal object into an entirely different shape or entirely different object. And let me just really quickly create another box and bring that up in z-axis and bring them out to show you how from a box we just created two entirely different shapes just by modifying and editing the mesh. Now this is how modeling is done. Now let's just move on to the next stage. The next stage or step would be 3D texturing. Now what is 3D texturing? It is a way of projecting 2D image or 2D color map onto a 3D computer generated model. Why we need to do that? Well, generally when we need some complex color information or other information on our object to appear in a certain way that we want them to appear, we might not be able to do that. We won't be able to do that within the 3D material or within the 3D shader itself. We need some sort of a 2D map that we can project onto our 3D surface. Now how we can do that in Blender? For this example, let's just take our already created model and prepare them for texturing. We first need to prepare these objects for 2D mapping. So that process is called UV unwrapping. In order to do that, we need to UV unwrap. In order to prepare these models for 2D mapping, we need to UV unwrap these models. So the process is called UV unwrapping. Let's just begin UV unwrapping with this box right here first. We're gonna select it and gonna go into the edit mode by pressing the tab key, and we are gonna go into the edge mode by here, or as I told you, by pressing Control and pressing tab and selecting the edge. We're gonna select some of the edges of this box and all the way down. Just like this, we're gonna select some edges across this box. Okay, we don't need to select this edge right down. All we need to do is select these edges. What it's gonna do is gonna unwrap from these lines. Let me show you what I mean in a minute. Let's just select all of these and then press Ctrl E and select Mark Seams. Now these will mark the seams or the edges from which it's gonna unwrap. It's gonna project 3D mesh onto a 2D plane using these seams or these edges as a reference to cut this mesh out so it can project onto a 2D plane, which it will call UVs. Now let me show you in a minute what I mean. We're gonna split this area into two, and we're gonna select UV image editor in this area. Let me just make more room for 3D viewport and zoom it out a bit to show you what is going on. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all by pressing A and A again. First A to deselect and the second A to select all again. Now pressing U key on the keyboard and then choose the first option, unwrap. As it says, unwrap the mesh of the object being edited. So as you can see, it has unwrapped this mesh onto a 2D plane. So it is representing this mesh, this 3D mesh onto a 2D plane. This representation of 3D mesh onto a 2D plane are called UVs. And let me show you in a minute. Let me just show you by creating another cube, bringing it right here, bringing it up in the z-axis and going into the edit mode, and then UV unwrap it. As you can see, when we haven't defined the seam on a mesh, it just unwraps it the best possible way it can, and it is not a good unwrapping. It cannot unwrap it onto a 2D plane. Well, this is a difference between this and this. In this model, all the UVs are overlapping onto each other. If we select and move it all, or let me just select them all, you can see they are all overlapping on each other, and basically it has unwrapped each polygon separately. This way, texturing it would be really difficult. And as we can see, it has really finely unwrapped the UVs in this. Never mind. Okay, now moving on, the next object, which is slightly more complex than a simple box, and let's just see how we can unwrap this. We will go into the edit mode by pressing tab and then select the edges that we think should be selected for unwrapping these UVs. Select these ones, and select these ones. I think we don't need to select these. And we can let me see. And now press Ctrl E and say mark seams. And then deselect everything by pressing A and selecting everything back again by pressing A again. And pressing U key from the keyboard and selecting unwrap. As you can see, it has unwrapped the UVs it has done its best to unwrap the UVs, we're gonna select one of the since this UV shell is tilted or rotated at an angle, we're gonna make it straight by selecting one of the vertex and then pressing and holding Control and pressing the L key from the keyboard and selecting the entire shell. Now pressing R for rotate and make it as straight as possible. Yeah, this is pretty much it for this tutorial. All I need to do is show you different aspects of 3D computer graphics and or how to deal with the different stages of 3D computer graphics in Blender. Now we're gonna press A again to deselect all of it, and then press Tab again to go out of the edit mode. Now we're gonna select this chair right here and then press Tab again to go into the edit mode of it as well. And we are gonna unwrap this as well. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all these edges, and turn them into seams. And I'm gonna also select these for the legs as well. I'm basically just selecting the faces. Basically just selecting the faces from the bottom of the legs. And how I did this, selecting both of these, well, we can really do this by pressing and holding Shift and then selecting these components. I think I have messed up a bit. There is no undo, so I'm gonna do it manually. Select this and yeah, I have to do it manually. Let's just mark these UVs really quick. Mark seams and well, we can first, let me just see. Can select that and then no, I don't think. I think that it'll just be one. Basically selecting this. Yes, this is pretty much it, and now we're gonna select this. Now we're gonna press Control E and then say mark and then select mark scene. Now we're gonna select all of these and press U and select UV unwrap. It says unwrap all of the UVs that we want. Now when we have all the mesh ready for 2D image projection, let's just export their UV layout for reference to create 2D map on. Let's just export all the UVs layout to create 2D map by using the UV layout as a reference. So I'm gonna select one of these first as the chair is already selected, and then press tab and press A to select all, and then I'm gonna go into the header region and gonna click on the UVs and go all the way down and select export UV layout. Now I'm gonna choose a directory and I'm gonna type, let's just say type chair, and as it already have an image of the same name, it's gonna overwrite onto that file, but it's fine for me. So I'm gonna click it and export UV layout, and it's gonna overwrite it on that. Now I'm gonna select tab again, or let's just deselect it really quick and tab again to exit the edit mode, and I'm gonna select this next shape or object, and I'm gonna go into its edit mode as well. Gonna select it all again, and again into the UVs, going to the export UV layout, choose the same directory, and gonna type, let's just say house for this, and I'm gonna press enter and export UV layout. Gonna come out of its edit mode as well, and then going into its edit mode and export UV layout, textures and box. Now I'm gonna prepare some text. Not gonna show into this video how I'm gonna exactly do that, but in later videos I will explain everything in detail. So I'm gonna pause this video and we're gonna come back with some 2D images to project those images onto these shapes, and then I'm gonna show you how to apply those images onto these meshes. Let's pause this video. Now I'm back with those 2D maps, and I'm gonna show you how to project those map onto these 3D objects. Before doing that, let's just select our rendering engine for this purpose. So we will go all the way to the top into the info editor header region, and we're gonna click this drop down menu, and we're gonna select from this all the way to the bottom the cycles rendering engine. A cycle rendering engine is physical based production level rendering engine. It is #1 open source rendering engine, and Blender user use this rendering engine very frequently because this is really a production level rendering engine, and it is competing with engines like V-Ray and Arnold. And in my opinion, I think it is the best rendering engine out there. Many people will disagree with me, but so for this reason we are gonna mostly stick with the cycles rendering engine throughout our training course. We have other rendering engine in Cycle as well. These are Blender rendering engine and Blender game, and we are gonna go and close this area or merge these area into one. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go into the materials tab in the property editor, and I'm gonna create a material for this. In here under the surface panel, we're gonna go into the color. Right in the end of this property or attribute, by the end of this you will see a button which have a dot right in the center of it. Click that and it will give you some options. We're gonna choose image from here, and now we're gonna select open, going into the directory where I have saved the diffuse map. I'm gonna select that diffuse map and I'm gonna say open. Now going down into the header region of the 3D view editor, right in here it says method to display or shade objects in the 3D view. Right down here, these are options for display mode for the 3D viewport. We're gonna select texture, and as you can see, it have displayed the texture we have created. Now you can see how we can project 2D map onto a 3D surface, and we're gonna do the same for the rest of the objects. Create a material, go into the options for color, choose image texture, open it up, go into the directory where we have saved the texture for it, select it and open it. Select the last object, apply the material or create the material by pressing this new button and choosing the image from the color options, going to the directory, selecting the right texture for it and open it. And as you can see, I've just created really simple I've just created really simple texture just to show you how we can project 2D image map onto 3D surfaces or 3D meshes. Now we have learned how to create 3D models and apply some 2D texture onto those models. Let's just select all of these objects and save them into layer for later use, since I have to show you how to do lighting and rendering instead of creating new objects for that. Since we have already created these objects, we will reuse these objects to demonstrate lighting process and rendering process in Blender. So let's just save these objects for later use. For doing that, we have to put them into a different layer. Now that we are already talking about layer, and since I have forgotten to explain or talk about layers in our previous project, seeing this opportunity, I'm gonna talk about the layers, and I'm gonna explain you what are layers are and how to use them. Now these things right here are called the layers. You click them and as you can see, the object just disappeared or they are hidden. It's because we have moved into a different layer. These are all layers of 3D viewport, and we can choose any layer to work on. And the layer that have some objects into it will show you an orange circle right in the center of it. By the way, I am choosing different layer by the left mouse button. To move to a different layer, all you have to do is select all the object and press N, and it will give you this UI. All you have to do is select a layer in which you want to put your objects in. I will choose this last one for some reason.